It's time for us to quickly jump into this session. We have two people who are going to be representing themselves on stage. I'm going to call them up on stage one by one. We have Arun Sreyas Reddy, founder, Race Energy, to come up to the stage. Can we give him a big round of applause while he makes his way to the stage? There he is. So you, sir, will be talking pro battery swapping. Correct me if I'm wrong. You are a pure battery swapping kind of a guy. We're going to have Rahul Lamba to join him on stage, founder, the energy company. He believes fast charging is the way forward. Can you give him a big round of applause while he makes his way to the stage? The gentleman who has the honor of being in the middle of all of this madness, he was on stage before. He is your moderator, the head of N2. Please welcome Vidya Shankar M to the stage with a big round of applause. So Vidya Shankar, this is the conversation that you have the honor of moderating. These two gentlemen on stage, one believing in battery swapping, the other believing in fast charging. Hopefully, it's going to be entertaining. I'm going to be sitting on the sidelines. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for making it sound like Alien versus Predator. Yeah. Right. So, he said honor, it's a difficulty because I'm a customer, I'm a user. We have electric vehicles, we run on fast charge, we run on swapping technology, everything, right? And we have two people here, very good friends, Arun, we have Rahul. So I'm going to start with this. Arun, Rahul, I'm calling you to my office. I have about 1,000 electric two-wheelers. I have 1,000 electric three-wheelers. You guys have to tell me whether I should go with fast charging or should I go with battery swapping, right? And you have to only talk about battery swapping, right? You have to only talk about fast charging. You have to only talk about battery swapping, right? So, guys, this is academic also because I know both of them are into both the technologies, but disclaimer, but let's start. Okay. Cool. So, I'll go with you, Rahul. Let's get started. You please sell to me as to why I should go with you.
Yeah, so maybe firstly I'll try to understand what is the use case that you are targeting for these.
I have two-wheelers. I work with Swiggy, I work with Zomato, I work with e-commerce, I work with bike taxis, all of them. So I'm just going to stick to that use case that I have bike taxis. I'm going to work with bike taxis. Why should I choose you?
Yeah, I think you should definitely go with fast charging. The biggest reason for it is cost. Because with battery swapping, you will need an extra inventory, which eventually, if you are not paying on day one, it is built into your OPEX model. It means that on a per kilometer basis, you still have to pay higher costs for it.
Arun, what is he saying?
No, I think I've got a lot of points on that. I'll have to take a step back later on in the discussion. But forgetting the inventory, which I'll explain it in a second, or the high capex, which is usually the concern around battery swapping. As a customer, like, as someone who is going to use the bikes, for you, every minute on delivery is important.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you're charging, say fast charging about 30 minutes or so, you're probably, if it's like local delivery, you're going to miss out on 3-4 deliveries. If it's like a local bike taxi, you're going to miss out on 1 or 2 taxis, right? 1 or 2 rides, right? And that is what we'll offer to you, right? You're not going to lose a minute in your operations, right? You'll have batteries always available that you can take and charge and all of those things. That's number one. Number two is that it's much cheaper. For you to buy your vehicle, it'll be much cheaper. You don't have to buy the batteries. You don't have to worry about the life of the battery. You don't have to worry about when you have to replace them, what warranty, all of those things. We take care of those things at the back end, and we'll ensure that you always have battery for your bike throughout the period of the life of the vehicle.
Super. Thank you. So, your response to that. So, he is saying the following. He is saying that my bike cost, the upfront cost of bike is going down. Okay. And you are making me incur that capex. What is your response to that statement?
I actually do not agree to this because in the market today, you can buy a vehicle separately and get fixed batteries also on a leasing model. So if you're looking at a cost per kilometer basis,
you still have to charge them.
Sorry?
You still have to charge them.
Yeah, so we'll come on charging as well. I think we have to remember a part. We all have smartphones. The first generation smartphones used to come with swappable batteries. And what do you have today? All of them have been pushed towards fixed batteries with fast charging. So I think electric vehicles will also see the same trend. But just to come up...
But you can't use your vehicle while it's charging, unlike you can use your phone while it's charging.
Perfect, yeah. To answer this question, maybe we still have to take a step back and understand. We have to agree that people who drive these vehicles are humans. After 50 kilometers, I have driven these vehicles myself. After 50 kilometers, people need a break. It is impossible to drive in a city like Bangalore. It took me 2 hours to cover 20 kilometers. So if a person has traveled 60 or 70 kilometers, he will take an eventual break, at least for 30 minutes to an hour. That is a decent enough time to fast charge. And we are not talking about 30-minute fast charging, guys. We are talking about 10 minutes or even 15.
Okay,
Yeah.
so to this question, so you're saying that people necessarily need to take a break, right?
Yeah.
And because they are taking a break, you are saying it is better for us
Yes.
to do a fast charging because they are anyway taking a
They are
break.
anyways taking a break. Yeah.
But a lot of times, Rahul, right, they take a break when they want to have a break.
Perfect.
Right? And at that point, they should have food, they should have,
Shade.
let's say, a washroom facility,
Yeah.
they should have a lot of facilities, right?
Exactly.
And then they should have massive power connection also, so
Yeah.
have fast charging.
Exactly.
So my question to you is, in a fast charging station, if you were to set up,
Yeah.
do you envisage setting up these facilities also?
Yeah, we definitely envisage it. Reason being, we have to understand, at least for two-wheelers, fast charging is not a huge capex power requirement. We are talking about 3 kilowatt power that can give you 100 kilometer range in less than an hour.
So how much of power is required to do that?
Yeah, so 3 kilowatt.
3
that's the
kilowatt.
sign. It's a 15 amp socket. Eventually, if you have to, you will...
3
you guys will-
kilowatt for an auto rickshaw is going to take
Yeah, so
like...
that's
No,
why
we
I'm
are still
starting
talking
with-
of
I'm
two-wheelers. We
talking
have not
of
got into
two-wheelers.
three-wheelers
Yeah,
yet. Right?
Yeah, so we'll start with two-wheelers, then we'll eventually go to three-wheelers as well. But just to give you guys a context, all of you, when you live in a home, you will have a 15 amp socket. That 15 amp socket is enough to give you a 3 kilowatt power. That is enough to charge your batteries in 1 hour to full. And if you have a high power available, which is say up to 6 kilowatts, you can charge your batteries in less than half an hour for 100 kilometers. And guys, understand one thing. You will never have a vehicle on field. In a very rare scenarios, you'll get batteries at 0%. Because it means that there are instances vehicle has to be pushed. So batteries come at say around 20%, 30%. So we are just talking about a top-up. In another 20 to 30 minutes, you will get a 60 to 70 kilometer of range addition. That still makes sure that you can cover the next set of deliveries.
Sure. So I'll come to you on the basis of what he said, Arun. He said that people work only for, people go to a fast charging station only for a top-up, right? And that is true in a lot of sense because, a vehicle, let's say, gives me about 70 kilometers on a full charge, which I have charged at home at the start of the day, at the end of the day, and the next day I'm bringing that vehicle to work. And it's got about 70 kilometers worth juice for that particular day, right? And let's say the person did about 60 kilometers. That's when the charge anxiety starts creeping into the mind of the people, of the riders, right? And when that happens, it is the top-up that we are looking at. Whereas in a battery swap model, you got a whole lot of float of batteries which is standing there, and I as a customer is paying for that float also. Right? Because anyway, you have to pass on the cost. You cannot tell me that you are not passing on the cost.
No, I actually looked at the cost of some of the public charging stations, fast charging stations. How much? I think it's about 20 rupees per unit in I think a Tata Power.
Yeah, that's for a 15 or a 30 kilowatt connection.
Sorry?
That's for a much higher power. It's not for a 3 kilowatt or a 6 kilowatt power. Yeah.
So coming back, I'll take a step back there. I wanted to explain that point. Essentially, I think you have to look at these different segments. Right, if you're looking at a two-wheeler, you are looking at a three-wheeler and you're looking at a four-wheeler. In a two-wheeler, on a private application, I think fast charging is fine, right? You need that top-up, you need that, you don't need it like daily, it's emergency situation. Your example of having a 3 kilowatt 15 amp socket works perfectly fine. But which delivery driver is living, with access to electricity wherever they park their bike, right? Which auto rickshaw driver is also living with those things? I agree with you on that. I agree with you on the private sector piece, right? Private sector piece is completely fine. It adds to the, usage of, or, increase of the adoption. Again, only a certain bit, I'll come to that once again.
We'll keep private sector out because I have a segment for it. I have time for that. We will keep it out. So we will only do the delivery segment, delivering for, let's say, a food application or an e-commerce application. That's got 70 kilometers.
Delivery, a top-up is not something that is always required. So top-up is not what the drivers usually come for. If I tell, and we are mostly focused on auto rickshaw drivers, we also have two-wheelers as well. If I just tell them that I'm just going to give you 30 or 40% battery, would they go? No, definitely not. They always, even if they have to wait, they will wait for 90-95% of the battery and only then go, even if it's like a 5 or 10 minute wait. That top-up concept is what they're taking because that's the only thing that they can do. That's the only amount of time that they can spare at that moment. If they had the luxury that, within 5 minutes I'll get 100% charge, they will obviously go for it, right? Because they don't have that option, they're topping it up. You're thinking reverse, right? And on the float piece, this whole, first of all, I think, disclaimer before we get into this.
No disclaimers, you continue. We'll do the disclaimer last.
Disclaimers in the end.
We both kind of agree that... No. You have to stick to only what you're saying.
So essentially, okay, fine. On your float point of view.
I know both of you have both the avatars. I'm asking you to stick to your avatar.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So we are adopting fast charging into our swapping technology. The reason why what Vidya is telling over here is that there's a float of extra batteries, right? Why do I need to maintain that float? Because I am charging my batteries at 0.5 C, about 2 hours of charge time, right? Because of those 2 hours of charge time, if I have, say, like a 12-hour utilization day, I'm able to rotate those batteries 6 times, which means for in total of 1 battery in the station can address about 6 batteries in the vehicles. That's a float of 16%. Now, if I'm having a 15-minute charge time or a 10-minute charge time that you mentioned, that I can do 6 times in an hour. Correct? And if I have a 12-hour, I can rotate it 12 times 6, 72 times is what I can rotate my batteries. So I have now a float of 1 by 72, whatever that percentage is, right? So that float, when you are telling fast charging, and you are telling, obviously, I'm assuming 10-minute perfect utilization because right after the 10-minute goes away, there's the next driver available. Yeah. Same assumption I'm also assuming for battery swapping.
For battery swapping as well.
Right? So very similarly, the CapEx also reduces with the same technology. There is absolutely no difference as long as my 1 by 72 is, lesser. So there are 2 points to this again. My 1 by 72 comes out to be, I think, roughly 2%, less than 1.5, 1.2, 1.3%, something like that. So that is what the extra interest, the financial cost for me, right? For bearing those extra batteries, all right? And what does the driver pay in an auto rickshaw case if they're taking with a battery? They are having to pay almost 24% interest rate, correct? All the delivery drivers, they're not going to get 8% interest rate, they're not going to get 9% interest rate. We as a company will get 8%, 9%, 10% interest rate. 10% plus my 1.5, 2% financial cost, 12% is mine, and as long as I can make that 12% difference, I'm profitable. Now, whatever technology is there in fast charging can be used in swapping. It will automatically reduce the cost of the swapping this thing. Right now, today for an auto rickshaw, our prices are in fact cheaper than a fast charging public charger price. We only charge 20 rupees per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, so we'll talk about 3-wheelers. Let's focus on 2-wheelers.
2-wheelers pricing, I don't know about the fast charging prices what they're offering.
Okay. So so I hear both sides. There was a point that was embedded in his conversation. He said a 0.5 C. Okay. Now that 0.5 C, I'm talking on your behalf right here. That 0.5 C means a better life of the product, of the vehicle, of the battery, correct? But if I pump in so much of power into the battery at 1 C, 1.5 C, then what happens there?
So I'll take another example from smartphones because I believe a lot of guys will have used smartphones. How many of you use a smartphone? All of us, right?
If you cannot get
I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to understand.
I don't think
what do people want?
I don't think smartphone examples are right.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why.
His turn to speak.
I'm just trying to cover the context of it. So see what happens with smartphones. If you have a OnePlus or an Apple or any other smartphone, your phones understand your usage pattern. They will fast charge during the day, but they will ultra slow charge during the night because they know that the person is not going to use the phone for the next 7 hours.
So are you saying that kind of intelligence is built as part of
our solution? Yes. That is something which actually extends the life even further than what a battery swapping person is doing because they are always, if they are always charging at 0.5.
We do the same as well.
So
that's, slow down at night.
So that's why I'm comparing. So rather than doing a 1.5 C continuous, what I am saying is you don't need that every time. What you care about is that when do I want fast charging, I want it to be fast charge. But we need to learn from our systems that when you do not want fast charging, that is the time we can ultra slow charge these batteries, in order to even preserve the batteries to extend their life by another 20 to 30%.
But how do you know that, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that knowledge is residing with the rider. Are you giving the option to the rider to determine what is fast charge, whether he wants to fast charge or slow charge?
Yes, yes. So taking that smartphone example, so when we put our phones to charge in the night, they take our consent that your phones will now be ultra slow charge during the night. Are you okay with it?
Okay.
And it's an auto approval process.
Okay.
So that same thing that we are also building with our batteries.
So you're saying you can build a user experience layer.
Exactly.
Where you can tutor the user.
Yeah.
And you can tell the user that ultra fast charging is good for velocity.
Yes.
And slow charging is good for life. And from that perspective, you choose whether you want
what do you
speed
want?
or you want.
And your pricing will also change accordingly.
So
your life you will get also will change accordingly. So we are giving more options to the users.
Okay.
Can I add a point here? Can I add a
please,
point here?
Please.
I agree with your technology because we also do the same thing.
Perfect.
But the whole point of fast charge, I mean, inherently what Rahul has mentioned is, if you want to use fast charging, you need to use some slow charging.
Okay. I'll clarify that. I'll clarify that.
That is correct. I agree with him, right? I think you also agree with him.
I also agree. I also agree with
that. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's not enough power available. There are power cuts. We are trying to create petrol. We're trying to create petrol. We want to create the same experience. Whatever petrol's been offering, you literally have to move 10 feet because we set up all our stations in HPBP. So it's literally the same experience that we're giving. And that experience of 2 minutes, no space taken, all of those things that add.
Fine. Brilliant.
I'll just add a point over here. So see, with fast charging, we're not saying there's no impact on life. But that's where technology companies like us exist. That with fast charging, we have to reduce that impact. That is still living much longer than any other traditional slow charging pack. That's something we have built. We are talking about an additional life beyond it. That is something that we can enable with ultra slow charging during the night. That is an added layer of advantage.
Sure. Super. So I think brilliant points, both of you. I am not able to decide yet. Okay. So
you're not supposed to decide.
Yeah, we agreed upon it. All right. So the next point. So we are drawing a line here. We are saying that for a delivery person, there are positives of fast charging. There are positives of battery swapping, right? And there are difficulties also in both the technologies. So we are leaving it at that. What about private vehicles? Do you think, Rahul, consumers today are willing to get into a battery swap mode? So see, I as a consumer, if I think, right, a Honda Activa kind of a ICE vehicle costs me about 95,000 rupees, right?
Yeah.
Only the vehicle, no fuel, 95,000 rupees. Whereas only a hull of a EV can cost me about 55,000 rupees.
Perfect.
So if you compare 55 versus 95, there's a 40K difference between the two.
Yeah.
Now, if I look at the cost of petrol for Honda Activa, it gives me about 40 kilometers per liter. So which means 100 kilometers is like 2 rupees per kilometer, 2 rupees, 20 rupees per 20 pies per kilometer, right? That is the cost that I'm incurring for fuel.
Yeah.
In case of a battery swap or a battery fast charge technology, I think it will go cheaper, right? Because it will not be 2 rupees 20 paisa per kilometer. Will it be 2 rupees 20 paisa per kilometer battery swap?
For a two-wheeler?
For two-wheeler?
No, it's less than 1 rupee, no?
It's 1 rupee, right?
Theoretically.
So now I don't know the number, so maybe.
I mean 50 rupees for a 2 kilowatt hour battery.
Correct, right?
So you get 80 kilometers of
correct,
range.
right? So when I compare like that, hull is 50% the cost, right? And the fuel is at 50% the cost.
Yeah.
Don't you think a lot of Indian consumers who prioritize value would want to go on a battery swap plus a hull model?
Yeah, so I'll maybe put this question in a different way. What you are talking about is that you are looking at how do I make sure that my day one cost is lower and my overall TCO is lower as an individual customer. You can still get a vehicle with a battery on lease. That's what MG has done with Windsor, the new vehicle they have launched, where it's a fixed battery and you are paying a monthly rental depending on how much you are using it. So I think there's a business model innovation not only in four-wheelers, it's also happening in two-wheelers and with e-rickshaws.
No, but the question specifically was, do you think an Indian consumer wants to have half the vehicle with him and half the fuel residing elsewhere. What is your thought?
I don't think anyone wants to have it because people are anyways paying a significant price for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if anyone has money, he'll always prefer to buy the whole vehicle.
Okay.
Rather than like just buying a portion of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that is your opinion. What's your opinion?
The question was from a ownership point of view, like how the
ownership point of view
how the
as an
owner-
end user.
Yeah.
If I were to buy a vehicle.
more of an emotional aspect is what.
Yes.
Right. To be honest, we never faced these issues. When we reached out to, like when we started selling auto rickshaws, two-wheelers, and we also have a lot of examples from Taiwan. Gogoro, I think, has about 90% market share in the two-wheeler electric vehicle sales. They're all swappable batteries. An Indian consumer is far more price sensitive than a Taiwanese or a Chinese consumer. China also, NIO is doing fairly well with swappable batteries. So I think we did think that this could be a challenge of the ownership of the battery, but we never kind of faced so much of issues because we kind of tell them that like, hey, look at the battery as a, petrol. Don't look at it as a, because at the end of the day, you're kind of you're buying the hull, like you said, with a vehicle. You're buying the engine and everything. Here you're buying the hull with the motor and the control and all of those things, right? Look at the battery as some petrol. Honestly, we didn't kind of face much issues. Again, with scale, things could change, how that could impact and all of those things, but
Sure.
yeah.
And
So-
I also think like if
One
you look
sec,
at
one sec,
numbers,
Rahul.
yeah.
So here, I want to take a audience poll, right? So assume that you are a person who is trying to buy a two-wheeler, okay? Please assume that you are a person trying to buy a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler for that matter, okay? And you're getting a car or a two-wheeler at 50% the price, which is only the hull. You don't get the battery inside, you just only the chassis of the vehicle you're getting, okay? Now you have the chance of either buying the battery so that the entire ownership resides with you, or you have the opportunity to take a battery swap. Which one will you take? Those who think they will take battery swap, please make a loud ha. Those 1, 2, at the count of 3, right? A loud ha. We'll take a voice vote here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I could hear some. Those who think they can go with the ownership, full battery ownership model with a fast charge model, I want you to say at the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, aha. 1, 2, 3.
This is the wrong audience. These are all HNIs we have here. They'll obviously prefer to buy.
No. Democracy wins.
Wrong market.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So we go to the next segment, right?
Sure.
And the next segment we'll talk of the three-wheelers,
Yeah.
right? And in three-wheelers, what is your opinion?
So in three-wheelers, L3 or L5?
L5.
Specifically L5 category vehicles. In L5 category vehicles, I think longer batteries with fast charging capabilities are the eventual winners. Because the way we are seeing it, that battery pricing, specifically LFP, has gone down drastically. And if anyone wants to do battery swapping, they have to make a chemistry choice difference. They have to move with NMC, which makes sure that the battery becomes lighter, but it also becomes very costly to operate. So that's our thesis, like longer lasting batteries, bigger battery sizes with fast charging are the eventual winners.
Okay, yours.
Like L5 auto rickshaw is just a no-brainer. I'll tell you why it's a no-brainer also, because forget all this debate and everything. You look at the data of how many sales are happening of fixed battery, it's not crossing 10%.
Sure.
10% in passenger auto rickshaws, and I think, 15% passenger auto rickshaws, cargo 22%. All our fixed battery autos, the market is not growing for the past 2 years.
Sure.
As simple as that. If you want me to give answers and everything, I can explain beyond it. It just doesn't work for L5. Period.
All right.
And this is not me selling. This is the
yeah.
Indian market data telling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I think we have covered most of the points. I want to leave the floor open to both of you. Can you give me some concluding comments, please?
Sure. I think, we are also strong adopters of fast charging technology, because the faster we charge our batteries, the lesser float the extra batteries that we have to maintain. This float is not an extra capex for us, because also at the end of the day, it contributes to extra life. Forget all the technologies that are being used. Just having extra batteries means that I have to reduce the utilization of my batteries, which contributes to extra life in days. Cycles remain the same, right? So for us, especially what it comes down to is that we are in control of the batteries, number one. We are able to cool the batteries in a stationary location, especially when they're charging. We are able to use much more powerful air conditioners, much more powerful refrigeration tools, which are able to cool down the batteries much quicker, much faster, and ensure that 25 degrees is always maintained. Our batteries are always charging at 25 degrees. In fact, they're charging at better conditions than that they're tested in labs. So definitely we get an extra life in our, say, whether it's 25% or 30% extra life, that we can always debate on. So that's point number one in terms of technology. Point number two is that, like, in terms of fast charging, 15-minute, 20-minute, or 30-minute technology, you're paying pretty much, especially in auto rickshaw case, you're paying almost like, I think, 20 rupees per unit. We are charging you 25 rupees per unit without you having to purchase your battery, right? So it's pretty much the same price, with an added advantage that you don't have to buy the battery upfront, and you don't have to pay those high interest costs. You don't have to replace your battery, right? So all of these things, and there is also a lack of space. I think I look at CNG example primarily. CNG, I think typically per vehicle waiting time is about 10-15 minutes, and you have these long queues building up everywhere. So we can fast charge 100 vehicles, 200 vehicles. You cannot fast charge 100,000 vehicles. There is just not enough space in India, especially in cities like Mumbai. There's just not enough space to park so many vehicles and fast charge those vehicles. And even if you do, you're going to build up into long queues, which will lead to 2 to 3 hours. What you need is there with swapping. It's already tried and tested with petroleum. You're just changing the technology. That's it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Rahul.
Yeah. So from our side, I would say, taking that same example of a petrol pump, I think we have to understand that petrol tank is the battery, fuel is the electricity over here. So that is what is the advantage of fast charging. So if we are only worried about refueling time, I think fast charging can cover that. We are talking about 10 minutes today, but remember we are seeing a 6x improvement in the last 3 years, where batteries used to take 3 to 4 hours, and currently we are at 10-15 minutes. It will eventually also go down to 5 minutes in the next few years. So that we feel is the eventual winner. And specifically in the L5 category vehicles, I think because the way cell pricing has gone down, longer range batteries are the ones which eventually everyone is targeting towards. Because they are giving pretty much you a range of more than 150 to 180 kilometers. So that meets the expectations of the users. And whenever you want it to be faster, that's an option which is available with the public charging infrastructure. And once these connectors are already standardized, then I think it's a no-brainer for anyone to choose a fast charging battery pack. Yeah.
Super. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. So now comes the difficult part. I have to judge this conversation. So I think all of you got a dose of how my life looks daily, because all these guys keep coming and telling me, keep coming to me and telling me that this is better and that is better. This is the real life of a user who has both the options. He's got a lot of data points being thrown by equally passionate people, and we are left to make a lot of decisions on the behalf of the company. So a lot of times we do the following: we meet midway and we say 50% goes to you, 50% goes to you, and then we figure out that that's the right thing to do, right? So I think, thank you so much, gentlemen. I think it was a lively conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
And I want to leave it with a disclaimer here. He also does fast charging, he also does battery swapping, he also does fast charging, he also does battery swapping. And both of them told me, how can I talk about just one technology and badmouth the other technology?
No, Vidya, correction. We use fast charging in swapping.
Whatever, but you still use it, right? So both of them had that apprehension. I have all my customers sitting here. I have been selling this point to them, and you're asking me to talk about the negative of the other side. But on that note, thank you so much for being such a sport.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Just before we move on from this, I'm going to ask you all to stay right there. If you could just take a step forward, sir. If you just right there and you right there. Can you notice the similarities between the both of them? Yeah? At one point in time, there were people at the console, they're saying they look like two siblings just yelling at each other, because we couldn't even understand what y'all were saying at one point in time, but then y'all calm down. Thank you to the moderator for that.
Brings in one dad.
Yeah, the one dad in between. May I request Alok Chauhan, Principal, Marcelio Fund, to please come up to the stage. and do the honors of thanking our moderator and our debaters for this afternoon. It was a good conversation, wasn't it? Can we get a big round of applause for them, please? This is the Global Clean Mobility Summit 2024, and on stage you just witnessed an interesting debate of sorts. Can we get a picture with all of you all together, please? Thank you all very much for being a part of this event. People of the audience, a bigger round of applause for all of them. Thank you very much.